Yo, what's going on here? I just got back. I went to go eat. Anyways, let's get right into the next video. Y'all know I cherish y'all time, so let's go.
In 1999, Nickelodeon introduced us to a character who would become an iconic part of pop culture, SpongeBob SquarePants. Created by former marine biologist Steven Hillenburg, from the very beginning, SpongeBob SquarePants struck a chord with audiences worldwide. The animation style, the absurdity, the grounded characters and story, everything was exactly what television viewers, young and old, didn't know they wanted, but ended up loving. And you know it, I am definitely one of those people. It didn't take long for the show to become Nickelodeon's flagship series. Today, it's difficult to imagine a world without him, as SpongeBob quickly joined the ranks of characters.
Yo. I'm sorry that the stream went down. I'm working to get it back up. I'll be back in it. Let's go.
In terms of global recognition. Over the years, it has grown into the fifth longest running American animated series and holds the title of the most widely distributed Viacom property ever. The show's influence extends far beyond television. It is branched into spin-offs, comics, films, video games, theme park attractions, hotels, resorts, and even parades. The yellow guy with the shiny shoes and square pants is everywhere and will probably be for a long time to come, if I had any say in it. However, with such extensive success, it's natural to suspect that Nickelodeon might be pushing SpongeBob a bit too far, as most companies do with their uber-successful mascots, and I've seen this happen with other series. When the execs get too greedy, the quality goes down. Or maybe I worry too much.
You worry too much.
So let's dive a bit deeper into Bikini Bottom, its effects on the surface world, and whether Nickelodeon is more of a Mr. Krabs than a SpongeBob. The Golden Era. So, I've mentioned the myriad ways in which SpongeBob is being pushed by Nickelodeon, but digitally and culturally, he's also become fully embedded in the zeitgeist. It's memes and references galore out there today, and multiple references to the characters were made on more adult shows like Robot Chicken, The Simpsons, and Family Guy. But what exactly makes SpongeBob SquarePants such a cultural phenomenon? To understand this, let's rewind to the show's origins. Back in the 1980s, Steven Hillenburg was teaching marine biology at the Ocean Institute of California. During this time, he came up with the idea to merge two of his passions, marine biology and animation. Now, this could have culminated in any number of creative disasters, but instead, we got blessed with a modern classic. Hillenburg's detailed knowledge of sea creatures and their behaviors influenced the creation of the underwater world of Bikini Bottom. I'm going to make a long story very short, maybe I'll get into it more another time, but Bob the Sponge became Sponge Boy and then eventually SpongeBob. This next part still blows my mind. It only took a month and SpongeBob unseated Pokemon as the highest rated children's show on television. And for 3 seasons, it was a hit machine, effortlessly churning out hilarious and uber-quotable episodes such as Pizza Delivery and Band Geeks. After 3 wildly successful seasons, Hillenburg was content with what he'd created and decided to end the series in the perfect way, with the 2004 SpongeBob SquarePants movie. It was beautiful. It had all the character and heart of the series, plus added animation quality and a fantastic storyline. Throughout their adventure, SpongeBob and Patrick grow personally and prove themselves capable of overcoming adversity. SpongeBob evolves from a naive yet optimistic fry cook into a hero who demonstrates bravery and resourcefulness. The movie brings SpongeBob's coming-of-age arc to a logical conclusion when he finally becomes the manager of the Krusty Krab. There, perfect, done, adios. That's probably what Hillenburg said when he left, directly after finishing his masterpiece. And then everyone probably popped champagne and wished each other well. And it was the perfect ending. Or at least it should have been. Nickelodeon saw cartoon dollar signs and ordered more episodes. But because Hillenburg had departed and his trusty crew member Paul Tibbitt took over as showrunner, this marked a turning point where things changed drastically, and not all for the best. The era of decline. The change in writing and characterization is glaringly obvious from the first episode of Season 4. In fear of a Krabby Patty, the story centers on Mr. Krabs deciding to keep the Krusty Krab open 24/7 just to outdo the Chum Bucket. It's typical for SpongeBob to dive into absurd ideas, but unlike earlier seasons that really dug into these ideas, this episode leans heavily on over-the-top jokes. SpongeBob's paranoia about Krabby Patties gets totally blown out of proportion, taking center stage over the usual character dynamics or logical storytelling. To put it in other words, in the first 3 seasons, the absurdism was a backdrop and a vehicle to explore and grow the characters organically. Whereas in the newer episodes, absurdism takes over and takes center stage, minimizing the characters. No, actually, it's more than that. It morphed the characters into one-dimensional, exaggerated versions of themselves, less subtle and much more slapstick and chaotic. The new approach takes each character's most noticeable trait and multiplies it by a gazillion. Mr. Krabs is even greedier, Squidward is even more cynical, Patrick even dumber, and SpongeBob's, who we see grow up through the first 3 seasons, and the movie, regresses into someone overly naive and extremely manic, with no rhyme or reason, an irritating man-child. The teens and older fans hated it, seeing through the spiel and finding that these were completely new characters, not the cast from seasons 1 to 3 they've come to adore. But kids still loved and watched it, so even though the show burst at the seams with negative ratings, Nickelodeon saw merchandise sales skyrocketing. The network developed something known as SpongeBob Syndrome, which involved them killing off any new cartoons that weren't immediately as successful as SpongeBob, which is a crazy standard to hold any animated series to. But it seems at this stage, Nickelodeon had indeed lost the plot. In 2004, many things were changing, outside of the cartoon world, most notably the rise of social media. Yes, Facebook was still a baby back then, but as it evolved into Instagram, Snapchat, and later TikTok, content became quicker and shorter, and so did the attention spans of viewers. So while the show evolved, or devolved, to keep it fresh and keep up with other shows at the time, like Fairly OddParents and Teen Titans Go, it also increasingly catered toward Gen Z and onward. The more slapstick, disconnected, exaggerated humor and pacing creates more instant jokes and moments of gratification. And I hate to say it, is just more memeable, aimed at those moments we get lost in the rabbit holes of Insta and YouTube shorts. We've all been there, doom scrolling till our fingers detach. We know that the good people at SpongeBob SquarePants knew they went too far off the track and made some big mistakes along the way, because then they made a huge decision. Hillenburg's return and legacy. In 2014, Nickelodeon announced that production had begun on another movie, a sequel called SpongeBob Sponge Out of Water, and fans were riveted at the news that Steven Hillenburg would return as executive producer. There was finally hope that the series would return to its former glory. The second movie was of course a smashing success, and Hillenburg returned to the series in a full-time position for season 10. Sadly, at that time, Steven also announced that he had ALS, the untreatable progressive disease, and he said that he would work on SpongeBob as long as he was able to. He passed away in November 2018 at his home in Southern California, and his legacy will forever be remembered and impact the entertainment industry, as it does to this day. Steven Hillenburg always expressly stated he was against spin-offs. The show is about SpongeBob. He's the core element. It's about how he relates to the other characters. So many found it in poor taste that after only 3 months of his passing, Nickelodeon announced an array of new spin-offs featuring the other characters. After witnessing the character of SpongeBob being more and more distorted to Nickelodeon's will and to feed their lust after money and the unnecessary and sometimes painful to watch spin-offs, someone very close to him, Paul Tibbitt, had this to say on the end of the announcement of Camp Coral. I do not mean any disrespect to my colleagues who are working on this show. They are good people and talented artists. But this is some greedy, lazy executiving right here, and they all know full well Steve would have hated this. Shame on them. What's even worse is shows don't just get greenlighted in 3 months, so Camp Coral was probably in the works while Hillenburg was still alive, meaning the poor man had to see his life's work bastardized while he fought for his life. But the show is owned by Nickelodeon and they can do whatever they want, and what they want to do is make money. I'm just happy that Steven never saw what happened to the spin-offs and the franchise. On IMDb, Camp Coral is rated 3.6 out of 10, while The Patrick Star Show is rated 3.5 out of 10. Terrible, but it also kind of keeps Steven's legacy intact if you think about it, drawing a clear line between his heartfelt quality and Nickelodeon's greedy quantity. While SpongeBob has turned into a cash cow for Nickelodeon and strayed thousands of nautical miles away from what it was and what it was supposed to be, it's best to remember the good times and keep honoring Steven Hillenburg for his cultural monument that he created, piloted, and perfected. It's a quarter of a century later and we're still talking about this phenomenal series. And I'm sure we'll be talking about it 25 years from now with well-deserved nostalgic reverence.
Alright. Thank y'all for watching. I'm gonna see you on the next video. Y'all stay tuned.